My name is Alexandra, and at 32, I willingly paid $10,200 for my parents' backyard remodel as their anniversary gift. They were thrilled, the plans were perfect, and I was so excited to celebrate with them. Then my Aunt Barbara called with 4 devastating words, just immediate family only. My dad later texted, "Do not be dramatic." So I was not. I just canceled every contractor payment instead. If you are watching this from somewhere where family actually values loyalty, drop a comment below and subscribe. Let me tell you how I learned the hard way, that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who take you for granted. I have always been a hard worker. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Chicago, I watched my parents Robert and Nancy struggle to make ends meet. Dad worked as an insurance salesman, and Mom was a part-time receptionist at a dental office. They provided everything we needed, but luxuries were rare. I remember how they would clip coupons at the kitchen table every Sunday, planning our meals around whatever was on sale that week. When I was 14, I started babysitting for neighbors to earn my own spending money. By 16, I had a weekend job at the local grocery store. And during college, I worked 2 part-time jobs while maintaining a scholarship. Financial independence became my goal early on, mostly because I saw how stress about money affected my parents' happiness. After graduating with a degree in finance, I landed an entry-level position at a financial advisory firm. 10 years later, I am now a senior financial advisor with my own client portfolio worth millions. The irony is not lost on me that I help others manage their wealth while coming from such humble beginnings. My relationship with my parents was always solid, if not perfect. We had our disagreements, especially during my rebellious teenage years, but they supported my education and career choices. I called them at least once a week, visited for major holidays, and always remembered birthdays and anniversaries with thoughtful gifts. This year was their 35th wedding anniversary, a milestone I wanted to make special. Their backyard had been a source of embarrassment for them for years. The concrete patio was cracked, the ancient wooden deck had splintered boards, and the lawn was more weeds than grass. My mother often commented how she wished they could entertain outdoors, especially during summer. "Just once I would love to host a proper garden party," she would say wistfully whenever we visited friends with beautiful outdoor spaces. "Can you imagine having everyone over for barbecues or Sunday brunches?" My father would nod along, adding, "When we retire, maybe we will fix it up. Put in that stone patio your mother has been dreaming about." But retirement was still years away, and I knew they would probably prioritize other expenses even then. That is when I got the idea to renovate their backyard as an anniversary gift. I started researching contractors in January, 6 months before their June anniversary. I consulted with landscape designers, collected quotes for materials, and created a budget. The initial estimate came to $8,500, which was steep but manageable if I postponed my planned trip to Hawaii. As the plans developed, I envisioned a beautiful celebration in the new space. Family and friends gathered to honor my parents' marriage while enjoying the transformed backyard. When I presented the idea to them over dinner one Sunday, their reactions were everything I had hoped for. My mother actually cried, clutching my hand across the table. "Alexandra, this is too generous," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "We cannot accept such an expensive gift." "You can and you will," I insisted. "Consider it payment for all those years of putting up with me." My father, not usually an emotional man, cleared his throat several times before speaking. "This means the world to us, sweetheart. Thank you." We spent the rest of the evening going through the designs I had brought. My mother's eyes lit up at the stone patio with built-in fire pit, the pergola draped with fairy lights, and the raised garden beds where she could grow her beloved roses. "We will have the anniversary party right here," she declared, already planning the menu and guest list. "All our friends and family together in our beautiful new backyard." I left their house that night feeling a warm glow of satisfaction. The financial sacrifice would be worth it to see them so happy. I imagined the party, picturing my parents receiving congratulations from loved ones in the space I had created for them. This was going to be perfect. The next day, I finalized contracts with Peterson Landscaping for the hardscaping and Garcia's Custom Carpentry for the pergola and deck work. The project was scheduled to begin in April and finish by early June, giving us plenty of time before the anniversary on the 25th. As the start date approached, my excitement grew. I began shopping for outdoor furniture that would complement the design, finding a beautiful teak dining set on sale. I even commissioned a custom metal sign with my parents' names and anniversary date to hang on the pergola. This was more than just a renovation. It was a tribute to their marriage and the stable home they had provided for me. Little did I know that my generosity was about to be taken for granted in ways I could never have imagined. On a crisp April morning, I arrived at my parents' house before the contractors to ensure everything was ready. Mr. Peterson arrived with his crew at exactly 8 o'clock, clipboard in hand, and ready to transform the barren backyard into something magical. "We will start by removing the old patio and deck," he explained as we walked the property. "Then we will grade the land properly to prevent water pooling near the house. Your parents mentioned they have had drainage issues in the past." I nodded, envisioning the finished product. "How long until we see the new patio taking shape?" "About a week for demolition and prep, then another week for the stonework. The pergola team will come in after that. Barring any weather delays, we should be on schedule." My father joined us, asking technical questions about the drainage system and the depth of the paving stones. He seemed genuinely interested in the process, which made me happy. This was going to be a joint project in spirit, even if I was handling the financial aspect. As the work progressed, I visited regularly to check on developments. By the end of the first week, the old concrete was gone and the yard was a muddy expanse of possibility. My mother would stand at the kitchen window, watching the workers with undisguised excitement. Mrs. Garcia called about the pergola design she mentioned casually during one of my visits. I asked her to add some decorative lattice work to the sides. "It will look much nicer for photos." I flipped through the amended contract she handed me. The additional lattice work added $300 to the bill. Not a huge amount, but it was the first change to our agreed-upon plan. "You should have checked with me first," I said gently. "But it is fine. The lattice will look beautiful." She patted my hand. "You are such a good daughter. Your father and I are so lucky." 2 days later, my father called about upgrading the fire pit from the prefabricated model we had selected to a custom-built stone version. "The contractor says it will blend better with the patio," he explained. "Only $700 more." I hesitated. "Dad, that is a significant increase." "If it is too much, we understand," he said, his voice dropping with disappointment. "We just thought since we are doing this renovation, we should do it right." Guilt immediately washed over me. "No, you are right. Let us upgrade the fire pit. I want this to be perfect for you both." By the third week, these small upgrades had added nearly $2,000 to the original budget. The total was now hovering around $10,200, and I had to dip into my emergency fund to cover the difference. One Saturday afternoon, about a month into the project, I stopped by with lunch for my parents. As I approached the back door, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. "The new backyard will be perfect for entertaining Robert's clients," my mother was saying. "Especially the Thompsons. He has been trying to land their account for months." "And do not forget the club members," my father replied. "When they see this setup, it will definitely secure my nomination for the board position." I paused, lunch bags in hand. This was the first I had heard about using the backyard for my father's business networking or country club politics. The renovation had been meant as a personal gift, a space for family gatherings and relaxation. When I entered the kitchen, they quickly changed the subject, complimenting the progress on the stone patio. I did not mention what I had overheard, telling myself I was overreacting. Of course they would want to show off their new backyard. That was natural. Later that week, I met my best friend Rachel for coffee and found myself venting about the escalating costs and my parents' expanding plans for the space. "I do not know, Alex," Rachel said, stirring her latte. $10,000 is a lot of money to spend on someone else's property. Are you sure this is a wise investment?" "It is not an investment," I defended. "It is a gift for my parents' anniversary." "I understand that, but it sounds like they are taking advantage of your generosity. Adding extras without discussing the cost with you first. That seems inconsiderate." I bristled slightly. "They are not taking advantage. They are just excited about the project." Rachel raised an eyebrow. If you say so, just be careful. Do not let them take you for granted. Her words stuck with me, especially when the following weekend my father casually mentioned wanting to add landscape lighting throughout the yard, another $400 addition. This time I did speak up. Dad, the budget is already stretched pretty thin. Maybe we could add the lighting next year. His expression immediately shifted to one of disappointment. We thought you wanted this to be special. The lighting would really elevate the whole design. He sighed dramatically. But if it is too much, we understand. I recognized the guilt trip for what it was, but still found myself agreeing to the lighting package. When I called the contractor to approve the addition, he mentioned that my mother had also inquired about upgraded patio furniture cushions. That evening, I had a frank discussion with both my parents about the budget. I am happy to create this beautiful space for you, I explained, but we need to stick to the plan from now on. Any additional features will have to wait for phase 2, maybe next year. They nodded in agreement, my mother squeezing my hand. Of course, sweetie. We do not want to take advantage of your generosity. But as she said it, I noticed her exchange a quick glance with my father, and for the first time a small seed of doubt took root in my mind. Was Rachel right? Were they taking my generosity for granted? As May arrived, the backyard transformation was well underway. The stone patio was nearly complete, its warm, sandy tones complementing the brick exterior of the house. The pergola structure was taking shape, and the landscapers had begun preparing the soil for new plantings. Despite my growing concerns, I could not help but feel proud of how beautiful everything was turning out. However, the financial strain was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Between the initial budget and all the small upgrades, I had now spent my entire vacation fund and dipped significantly into my savings. I had canceled my Hawaii trip entirely and started bringing lunch from home instead of eating out with colleagues. I even postponed scheduled maintenance on my car, hoping it would hold out a few more months until I could rebuild my savings. When the contractor called about a problem with the irrigation system that would add another $350 to the bill, I reluctantly agreed while mentally calculating which other expenses I could cut from my personal budget. That weekend I visited my parents to check on the progress, and found my mother in the backyard with a notebook directing one of the workers about plant placement. The hydrangeas need to be closer together, she was saying, and I have decided I want boxwood shrubs along this edge instead of the lavender we discussed. The worker looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, changing the plant selection now will affect the pricing. The boxwoods are considerably more expensive. But they will look so much better for the party, she insisted, not even acknowledging the cost issue. When she noticed me approaching, she smiled brightly. Alexandra, what do you think about boxwoods instead of lavender? Much more elegant, right? I took a deep breath. Mom, we agreed no more changes to the plan. The lavender was chosen specifically because it thrives in this soil type and requires less maintenance. But the boxwoods would create such a sophisticated look, she persisted. Sharon Wilson has them in her garden and they are simply stunning. Sharon Wilson was the wife of the country club president, and suddenly my mother's motivation became clear. This was about impressing the social circle, not creating a space our family would enjoy. We are sticking with lavender, I said firmly. The budget cannot accommodate any more changes. My mother's expression cooled. Well, it is your gift, I suppose, though I thought you wanted us to love it. The guilt trip was becoming a familiar tactic, but this time I stood my ground. As I left, I overheard my father in the driveway chatting with a neighbor. Just wait until you see it finished, he was saying proudly. I designed most of it myself, spared no expense on the materials. I slowed my pace, stunned by his words. He had contributed exactly $0 to this project and had minimal input on the design, yet here he was taking credit. The neighbor noticed me and waved, causing my father to turn around. Oh, Alexandra is here. She helped a bit with the project too, he added as an apparent afterthought. Helped a bit, I repeated once the neighbor had left. Dad, I am paying for the entire renovation. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Well, yes, financially. But you know what I mean. It is a family project. A family project that is costing me over $10,000, I reminded him. He patted my shoulder dismissively. and we appreciate it, sweetheart. You know that. As the anniversary date approached, I tried several times to discuss the party plans with my parents. Each time they gave vague responses or changed the subject. "We are still finalizing the guest list," my mother would say, or, "We will figure out the details once the backyard is finished." One evening, I called my younger brother James to see if he knew more about the party arrangements. "I assumed you were handling all that," he said. "Mom just told me to keep June 25th free. Something about a family dinner." "Family dinner," I repeated. But they were planning a full anniversary party with friends and extended family. That was the whole point of the backyard renovation. There was an uncomfortable pause. "Well, that is not what they told me." Actually, he hesitated. "Mom mentioned something about a bigger event the following weekend for their friends and colleagues. But she specifically said the anniversary itself would just be immediate family." My stomach tightened. Did she happen to mention if I was included in this immediate family dinner? "I assume so," James said, though he sounded uncertain. "Why would not you be?" I thanked him and ended the call, troubled by this new information. If there were two separate events planned, why had no one mentioned this to me? During my next visit, I arrived unannounced and found my mother at the dining room table addressing envelopes. When she saw me, she quickly gathered the papers into a stack and slipped them into a folder. "Alexandra, what a surprise. We were not expecting you today." "I wanted to check on the backyard progress," I said casually, noting her flustered behavior. "What are you working on?" "Oh, just some correspondence," she said vaguely. "The backyard looks wonderful. The workers are finishing the planting today." After she left to make coffee, I glanced at the folder she had left on the table. Inside were invitations with flowing script. "Robert and Nancy Thompson request the pleasure of your company to celebrate 35 years of marriage." The date listed was not their actual anniversary, but the following Saturday. The location was simply listed as the Thompson residence. When my mother returned, I held up one of the invitations. "Planning a party you forgot to tell me about." She had the decency to look embarrassed. "We were going to tell you, of course. We just thought, well, with all the money you have spent on the backyard, we did not want to burden you with party planning too. So, there are two events. A family dinner on the actual anniversary and then this larger party." She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "Yes, just a small family dinner on our actual anniversary, very intimate. Then the bigger celebration that weekend." Something still felt off, but I could not quite put my finger on what. "Well, I would be happy to help with both events. Just let me know what you need." "Of course, dear. We will certainly do that." Later that week, I ran into my Aunt Susan at the grocery store. After catching up briefly, she mentioned my parents' anniversary. "Your mother has been calling everyone about the party," she said as we stood in the checkout line. "She is so excited about showing off the new backyard. Your father has apparently invited half the country club." I nodded, still troubled by the separate events. "Are you coming to both the family dinner and the weekend party?" Aunt Susan looked confused. "What family dinner?" Nancy only mentioned the Saturday event. She was quite specific about it being an adults-only affair. Very sophisticated. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Adults only. What does that mean exactly? "Oh, you know, no children running around. Though I do not think any of the cousins have young kids anymore anyway." She paused. "I assumed you were helping host, since you paid for the renovation. Nancy mentioned how generous you were with the backyard gift." I forced a smile and changed the subject, but my mind was racing. If Aunt Susan, who was my mother's own sister, was only invited to the Saturday party, then what exactly did immediate family mean for the anniversary dinner? On my drive home, I called my Aunt Barbara, my father's sister, who had always been straight with me. "Aunt Barbara, are you going to my parents' anniversary dinner on the actual date or just the weekend party?" "Neither as far as I know," she replied. "I received an invitation for the Saturday event, but Nancy called yesterday to say they were keeping the actual anniversary date for just immediate family. She said something about a special dinner with just them, James and his girlfriend. Very intimate." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Did she happen to mention me being there? Another uncomfortable pause. "No, honey," she did not. "I just assumed you had other plans that night." The pieces were finally coming together, and the picture they formed made my heart sink. After spending over $10,000 to create the perfect backyard for my parents' anniversary celebration, I was apparently not considered immediate family enough to be included in their actual anniversary dinner. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I had been used for my financial contribution, nothing more, and no one had even had the courage to tell me directly. By early June, the backyard transformation was nearly complete. The stone patio gleamed in the sunlight, the pergola stood proud with its decorative latticework, and the new plantings added splashes of color against the fresh green lawn. The final invoice from Peterson Landscaping arrived in my email, bringing the total to exactly $10,200, more than 20% over the original budget. I scheduled the final payment for the following Monday, wanting to inspect everything one last time over the weekend. Despite my growing suspicions and hurt feelings, I still took pride in what my gift had accomplished. The space was truly beautiful, exactly what my parents had always wanted. On Friday evening, as I was leaving work, my phone rang. It was Aunt Barbara, my father's sister, and the family truth teller. We chatted briefly about her upcoming vacation, and then she cleared her throat awkwardly. "Alexandra, there is something I think you should know. I just got off the phone with your mother about the anniversary events." "Yes," I said, my stomach already tightening with dread. "Well, she was confirming details for the Saturday party, and then she said, 'Oh, by the way, the actual anniversary dinner on Friday is just immediate family. Hope you understand.'" I gripped the phone tighter, and by immediate family she meant. She specifically mentioned it would just be them, James and his girlfriend Natalie. "When I asked about you, she got flustered and said you were too busy with work to attend a small family dinner, but would of course be at the big celebration on Saturday." A cold wave of anger washed over me. "I see. Did she happen to mention that I have never been told about either of these events directly, or that I spent over $10,000 creating the backyard where they will be hosting both celebrations?" Aunt Barbara's shocked silence was answer enough. "Thank you for telling me," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I appreciate your honesty." After ending the call, I sat in my parked car, too stunned to drive. Everything suddenly made perfect sense. The secretive behavior, the vague responses about party planning, the separate events. My parents had used my financial generosity to create a beautiful entertainment space, but when it came to actually celebrating their milestone, I was an afterthought at best. I finally drove home in a fog of hurt and anger. Once inside my apartment, I called my mother, determined to confront her directly. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. "Alexandra, can I call you back? I am in the middle of finalizing the menu for next weekend." "Actually, Mom, this cannot wait. I just spoke with Aunt Barbara, who mentioned that you are having a family dinner on your actual anniversary." There was a telling pause. "Yes, just a small gathering. Nothing fancy." "And was I going to be invited to this small gathering?" I asked pointedly. "Well, of course you are always welcome, but we know how busy you are with work. We did not want to obligate you to attend two events." "That is interesting because you never actually mentioned either event to me. I had to hear about both from other people." My mother's tone turned defensive. "We have been meaning to discuss it with you. Things have just been so hectic with all the backyard work." "The backyard work that I paid for," I reminded her. "Over $10,000 so you could have the perfect space to celebrate your anniversary." "And we are incredibly grateful," she said quickly. "Everyone will see the beautiful result at the Saturday party." Everyone except me on the actual anniversary, apparently. "Alexandra, do not be dramatic. It is just a quiet dinner." I took a deep breath. "Put Dad on the phone, please." After some muffled conversation, my father came on the line. "What is this about, Alexandra?" "I just found out that I am not invited to your anniversary dinner on the actual date, despite paying for the entire backyard where you will be hosting it." "Now listen," he started, his voice taking on the patronizing tone he used when he thought I was being unreasonable. "Your mother and I are very appreciative of your gift, but the Friday dinner is just for us and James. He is bringing Natalie because they live together now, practically married." "And I do not qualify as immediate family?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Of course you do, but he trailed off, clearly unable to provide a reasonable explanation. But what, Dad? But you and Mom have been planning this all along, using me for the backyard renovation, while intentionally excluding me from the celebration that was supposedly the whole point of the project. You are overreacting, he said dismissively. This is exactly why we hesitated to tell you directly. You always make everything about yourself. That statement, so unfair and so untrue, was the final straw. Really, I make everything about myself. I just spent my entire savings on your backyard, canceled my vacation, and now I am being told I am not welcome at your anniversary dinner. Please explain how that is making things about me. Alexandra, stop being dramatic, my father said sharply. We will see you at the Saturday party with everyone else. Everyone else being your business associates and country club friends, the people you are actually trying to impress with my $10,000 gift. I am not having this conversation right now, he said. We can discuss this when you have calmed down. He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. Within seconds, a text message appeared from him. Do not be dramatic. This is our anniversary, and we get to decide how to celebrate it. That text was the moment something shifted inside me. The hurt transformed into a cold, clear resolve. I had been used, plain and simple. My parents had seen me not as their daughter but as a financial resource to fund their social aspirations, and now they did not even have the decency to acknowledge what they had done. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. First, I logged into my bank account and canceled the scheduled final payment to Peterson Landscaping. Then I sent an email to Mr. Peterson explaining that there had been a serious family dispute regarding the project, and I would be freezing all remaining funds until further notice. I did the same with Garcia's Custom Carpentry, canceling the final installation of the decorative elements for the pergola. Next, I contacted the nursery that was scheduled to deliver the remaining plants on Monday, explaining that the order needed to be put on hold indefinitely. Finally, I called the custom furniture shop and canceled the delivery of the teak dining set, forfeiting my deposit. With each cancellation, a weight seemed to lift from my shoulders. I was no longer a doormat to be walked over, no longer a bank account to be drained for others' benefit. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was standing up for myself against my parents' manipulations. After finishing the calls and emails, I turned off my phone completely. Whatever fallout was coming, I would deal with it tomorrow. Tonight, I needed peace, and the space to process the profound betrayal from the people who should have valued me the most. I slept surprisingly well that night, the kind of deep sleep that comes after making a difficult but necessary decision. When I woke up the next morning, I took my time getting ready, savoring a cup of coffee on my balcony before finally turning my phone back on. The screen immediately lit up with notifications: 39 missed calls, 27 text messages, and 15 voicemails. Most were from my parents, starting with irritated messages that quickly escalated to panic as they presumably received calls from the contractors about the canceled payments. Alexandra, call us immediately. There seems to be some mistake with the landscaping payment. Why are the contractors saying you canceled the furniture delivery? Call us now. This is completely unacceptable behavior. Turn your phone on and explain yourself. The last voicemail from my mother was tearful and angry. How could you do this to us? After all we have done for you, the party is in 2 weeks and now everything is ruined. Your father is furious. You need to fix this immediately. I deleted all the messages without responding. Let them stew for a while. Let them feel a fraction of the disrespect and dismissal they had shown me. Around 11 o'clock, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing in the hallway, her expression a mixture of anger and distress. I did not open the door immediately. Alexandra, I know you are in there. Open this door right now, she shouted loud enough for my neighbors to hear. I waited, letting her continue to call my name and pound on the door. After about 2 minutes of this, I finally opened it, my expression carefully neutral. Hello, Mother. Would you like to come in, or do you prefer to continue yelling in the hallway where all my neighbors can hear you? Her face flushed red, but she stepped inside, dropping her purse on my entryway table with unnecessary force. What have you done? She demanded without preamble. The contractors called saying all the final payments have been canceled, the furniture delivery is off, everything is falling apart just days before our celebration. I gestured to my living room sofa. Please sit down. I will not sit down. I want an explanation for this childish behavior. Childish, I repeated calmly. Is that how you would characterize my response to being excluded from the anniversary dinner I funded? This is not about that. This is about you ruining our anniversary plans out of spite. I maintained my calm demeanor. I think we both know what this is really about. You and Dad used me for my money. You let me believe I was creating a special space for a family celebration, when in reality you planned to exclude me from the actual anniversary, while using the backyard to impress your social circle. That is ridiculous, she sputtered. We never asked you to spend that much money. That was your choice. A choice I made based on false pretenses, I countered. If you had told me from the beginning that I would not be included in your actual anniversary celebration, do you think I would have spent over $10,000 on your backyard? She avoided the question entirely. The Friday dinner is just a small family thing. You are making this into something it is not. A small family thing that includes James and his girlfriend but not your own daughter. Please explain how that makes sense. My mother's expression shifted from anger to manipulation, a technique I recognized from childhood. We thought you would be too busy. You are always so focused on your career. James is bringing Natalie because they are in a serious relationship, practically engaged. So now I am being punished for being single and successful. No one is punishing you, she insisted. But you are certainly punishing us by canceling everything at the last minute. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this will be? What will we tell everyone? Perhaps you could tell them the truth, I suggested. That you tried to take advantage of your daughter's generosity and it backfired. The front door opened before she could respond, and my father walked in without knocking. His face was flushed with anger. Fix this, he demanded, without greeting. Call the contractors right now and tell them it was a mistake. I turned to face him. It was not a mistake, Dad. I meant to cancel those payments. This is completely unacceptable, he blustered. Do you have any idea what you have done? The Williamsons are coming to the party. I have been trying to get their business for years, and the club president. His words confirmed everything I had suspected. Thank you for making it so clear what this was really about. Not celebrating your marriage milestone with family, but impressing business contacts and climbing the social ladder at the country club. That is not fair, my mother interjected. Of course we want to celebrate with family too. Just not with me on the actual date, I pointed out. For God's sake, Alexandra, my father exploded. It is just dinner. Why are you making such a big deal about this? Because it is not just dinner, I said, my voice finally rising. It is the principle. It is about the fact that I spent my entire savings on a gift for you, and you could not even be bothered to include me in the celebration that was supposedly the whole point of the project. It is about you taking me for granted, assuming I would just keep giving while getting nothing in return, not even the basic respect of being treated like a member of this family. We have always treated you like family, my mother protested. No, you have treated me like an ATM machine. The daughter with the good job who can fund your home improvements and then be conveniently sidelined when it is time to actually celebrate. My father paced the living room, his anger shifting to calculation. What will it take to fix this? Do you want a formal invitation to Friday dinner? Fine, you are invited. Now will you call the contractors? The casual way he offered what should have been a given all along only reinforced my decision. This is not about the invitation anymore. This is about recognizing a pattern that has been going on for years. You take and take emotionally and now financially and give very little in return. That is absurd, my father scoffed. We gave you everything growing up. You did your job as parents, I acknowledged, and I have always been grateful for that. But as an adult, I have noticed how one-sided our relationship has become. When was the last time either of you asked about my life, my work, my goals? When have you ever made a sacrifice for me the way I have for you? They exchanged uncomfortable glances, unable to provide examples. I need you both to leave now, I said firmly. I have said what I needed to say. And the backyard, my mother asked desperately. What about the party? The backyard renovations that have been completed are yours to enjoy. The elements that have not been installed yet will not be unless you want to pay for them yourselves. As for the party, that is your problem to solve. You cannot do this, my father said, his voice low and threatening. If you go through with this, there will be consequences for your relationship with this family. I met his gaze steadily. I think you have already shown me exactly where I stand in this family. Now please leave. My mother began to cry, a tactic that had worked on me countless times before. Alexandra, please, we are your parents. How can you treat us this way? I am treating you the way you treated me, I replied simply. The only difference is that I am being honest about it. After more arguments and attempts at manipulation, they finally left my father's parting words ringing in my ears. You will regret this. When you calm down and realize what you have done, do not expect us to forgive easily. As the door closed behind them, I felt a strange mixture of emotions, sorrow for what our relationship had become, but also an unexpected sense of liberation. For years, I had tried to earn their approval and love through financial and emotional generosity. Today, I had finally recognized that no amount of giving would ever be enough if they did not value me for who I was, not what I could provide. The confrontation had been painful, but necessary. And for the first time in my adult life, I had stood my ground against their manipulation. Whatever happened next, I knew I had done the right thing for myself. The next week passed in a strange state of emotional limbo. My parents attempted several more tactics to get me to reverse my decision, guilt-laden messages, flying monkeys in the form of extended family members, and finally complete silence. The silent treatment was their nuclear option, one they had employed throughout my childhood whenever I had disappointed them. I immersed myself in work, finding comfort in the structured world of financial advising, where relationships were clearly defined and transactions transparent. My colleagues noticed my subdued mood, but I kept the details private. How could I explain that I had spent $10,000 on a backyard renovation only to cancel the final stages out of hurt and anger? 5 days after our confrontation, my brother James called. He had apparently been brought into the situation by our parents, who had given him a heavily edited version of events. Mom and Dad say you are having some kind of breakdown, he began without preamble. They said you canceled all the backyard work because you were not invited to some dinner. I sighed, unsurprised by their framing. That is not exactly what happened, James. Did they tell you that I spent over $10,000 creating that backyard specifically for their anniversary celebration? They mentioned you contributed to the renovation, he said cautiously. Contributed? I paid for the entire thing. Every dollar. And then I discovered that I was intentionally excluded from their anniversary dinner while you and Natalie were invited. There was a pause. Wait, seriously, I had no idea you were not invited. Mom just told me it was a small family dinner. Apparently, I do not qualify as family when it comes to intimate celebrations, only when it comes to funding them. James was quiet for a moment. That is really messed up, Alex. I honestly had no idea. Did you also know they are using the backyard primarily to impress Dad's business contacts and the country club crowd? The Saturday party has almost nothing to do with celebrating their marriage and everything to do with social climbing. Jesus, he muttered. No, they presented it very differently to me. Our conversation continued for nearly an hour as I filled in the gaps in his understanding. By the end, his perspective had shifted completely. I cannot believe they treated you that way, he said, genuine anger in his voice. Using you for your money and then excluding you is beyond disrespectful. Thank you for saying that, I replied, feeling validated for the first time since this whole ordeal began. It means a lot that you understand. For what it is worth, Natalie and I will not be attending that Friday dinner either. Not if you are not welcome. His solidarity touched me deeply. I appreciate that, but you do not have to take sides. This is not about sides. This is about basic respect and decency. What they did was wrong, period. After our call, I felt slightly less alone in my stance. It was something of a revelation to realize that I had an ally in my brother who had always been closer to our parents than I was. The next day brought another unexpected phone call, this time from Aunt Barbara. "I just want you to know that I think you did the right thing," she said after I explained the full situation. "Your parents have always had a blind spot when it comes to how they treat you versus your brother. Standing up for yourself was long overdue." "I still feel guilty sometimes," I admitted, like maybe I overreacted. "Honey, you spent $10,000 on a gift and they could not even include you in a family dinner. That is not an overreaction. That is a completely appropriate response to being devalued and used." Her validation was like a balm to my wounded spirit. "I just do not understand how they could not see how hurtful their actions were." "Your parents have always been somewhat self-absorbed," she said bluntly. "My brother especially has always been focused on appearances and status, but that does not make their behavior acceptable." 2 days later, my mother attempted reconciliation via text. "The contractors are asking for the remaining payments. Please reconsider. We have included you in the Friday dinner plans now." I did not respond. This was not about the invitation anymore. It was about a fundamental lack of respect that adding me to a guest list could not fix. Meanwhile, I received updates from Mr. Peterson about the project status. The main elements were complete: the patio pergola structure and basic landscaping. What remained unfinished were the decorative touches, the custom lighting, the teak furniture, and some of the higher-end plantings. The backyard was functional, but missing the luxurious finishing touches that would have made it truly showcase-worthy. The following Sunday, a week and a half after our confrontation, my father showed up at my door alone. His expression was not angry this time, but cautiously conciliatory. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. I let him in, curious about this new approach. "Your mother and I have been doing some thinking," he began after declining my offer of coffee. "We may have mishandled the anniversary plans." It was as close to an admission of wrongdoing as I had ever heard from him. "That is one way of putting it," I replied neutrally. "The thing is, Alexandra, we never intended to hurt you. We just thought, well, we assumed you would be more interested in the bigger celebration with everyone there." "Did it never occur to you to simply ask me what I wanted, or to recognize that after spending thousands of dollars on your backyard, I might want to be included in the actual anniversary dinner?" He shifted uncomfortably. "We took you for granted. I can see that now." The admission surprised me. "Yes, you did." "The backyard looks good," he continued. "Not quite what we had envisioned with all the final touches, but still nice. The Williamsons canceled their RSVP when they heard it was not complete. Several others, too." I suspected this was the real reason for his visit: the social embarrassment of having to explain the unfinished project to his important guests. "I am sorry your party plans are affected," I said, not entirely sincerely, "but actions have consequences." He nodded slowly. "Your mother is taking this very hard. She cries every day, says she feels like she has lost her daughter." "I have not gone anywhere, Dad. I just stopped allowing myself to be used." We talked for nearly an hour, covering years of small hurts and disappointments. While he never offered a full apology, he did acknowledge that they had taken my financial and emotional support for granted. By the time he left, we had reached a fragile truce. I would not reinstate the canceled elements of the backyard project, but I would attend a rescheduled smaller anniversary dinner that included all immediate family members. The original anniversary date came and went without celebration. The big Saturday party was downgraded to a casual gathering with closer friends and family. I did not attend, still needing space to process everything that had happened. 2 weeks later, we gathered for the rescheduled family dinner. The atmosphere was strained but civil. My mother had clearly been crying before my arrival, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. James and Natalie provided much-needed buffers, keeping conversation flowing when awkward silences threatened. During dessert, my mother finally addressed the elephant in the room. "We want to thank Alexandra for the beautiful backyard," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It was an incredibly generous gift, and we did not appreciate it properly." It was not quite an apology, but it was a start. My father nodded in agreement, adding, "We made mistakes in how we handled things. The backyard was always meant to be enjoyed by all of us as a family." I acknowledged their words with a nod, not quite ready to fully forgive, but willing to take this small step toward healing. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I miss you," she said simply. "This distance between us. It hurts." "It hurts me too," I admitted. But I needed to establish boundaries. I cannot keep giving emotionally and financially without receiving basic respect in return. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand that now, and I am truly sorry for taking you for granted." It was the first genuine apology I had received, and though it did not erase the hurt, it opened a door to potential reconciliation. As I was leaving, my father awkwardly suggested family therapy. "Your mother found someone who specializes in adult family relationships. If you are willing, we thought it might help us communicate better." The suggestion shocked me, as my father had always dismissed therapy as nonsense for weak people. His willingness to try it indicated just how seriously he was taking this rift. "I would be open to that," I said cautiously. "It could be helpful." Over the following months, our relationship entered a new phase. Through therapy sessions and individual conversations, we began addressing long-standing patterns of behavior that had contributed to the breakdown. My parents struggled with acknowledging their preferential treatment of James and their tendency to value appearances over authentic connection, but they were making efforts. I maintained firm boundaries, no longer offering financial assistance for their projects or accepting guilt trips about my busy work schedule. When my mother attempted to fall back into old patterns, suggesting I fund a kitchen renovation since the backyard worked out so well, I calmly but firmly declined. "My financial resources are not family resources," I explained. "I am happy to contribute to joint activities or give appropriate gifts for special occasions, but I will not be funding major home improvements anymore." She was disappointed but did not press the issue, a small but significant sign of progress. The backyard itself became something of a symbol in our family narrative. Not quite the showpiece my parents had envisioned, but functional and pleasant. Much like our relationship, not perfect but workable with appropriate boundaries and mutual respect. 6 months after the backyard debacle, the family dynamic had shifted into something new and in many ways healthier than before. The carefully constructed facade of perfect family harmony had been shattered, replaced by something more authentic, if occasionally uncomfortable. The backyard had weathered its first winter. The stone patio had developed a subtle patina that actually enhanced its charm. The pergola stood strong, though without the custom lighting it was less dramatic than originally planned. My parents had eventually purchased their own outdoor furniture, a more modest set than the teak ensemble I had selected, but perfectly functional. When spring arrived, I visited one weekend to help my mother plant her garden beds. As we worked side by side, there was an ease between us that felt new. "I have been thinking a lot about what happened last year," she said, as she carefully positioned a rose bush, "about how we treated you." I continued digging, giving her space to continue. "For so long, your father and I defined ourselves by how others saw us. The right neighborhood, the right friends, the right appearances. We transferred that pressure onto you kids, but in different ways. With James, we were always trying to fix his problems, bail him out. With you," she paused. "With you, we just expected perfection because you seemed so capable. We took your strength for granted." It was perhaps the most insightful thing my mother had ever said to me. "That explains a lot," I acknowledged. "I always felt like I had to earn your approval through achievement while James got it just for existing." She nodded sadly. "That was unfair to both of you in different ways. I am sorry it took something so dramatic for me to see it." Later that same day, my father and I sat under the pergola watching the sunset. He was not a man comfortable with emotional conversations, but therapy had pushed him to try. "You know, when I was growing up, my father never thought anything I did was good enough," he said, staring into his coffee cup rather than looking at me. "I promised myself I would be different with my kids." "And you were with James," I pointed out gently. He winced. "Yes, I overcompensated with him, but with you. I guess I saw myself in you. The achiever, the responsible one. I thought pushing you was helping you." It was not about the pushing, Dad. It was about the unequal expectations and the lack of acknowledgement. You expected financial and emotional support from me while giving me less in return than you gave James. He nodded slowly. I can see that now. It was not fair. These conversations were not easy, but they were necessary. The family therapy sessions had given us a vocabulary for discussing these dynamics without immediately becoming defensive. My relationship with James had also evolved. The backyard incident had opened his eyes to the different standards our parents had set for us, and he had become a surprising ally in holding them accountable. I never realized how much pressure they put on you, he admitted during a lunch just the two of us had a few weeks later, or how much they relied on you financially. I enabled it for a long time, I acknowledged, always trying to earn their approval through achievement or generosity. Well, I am guilty of taking advantage too, he said ruefully. All those times I borrowed money without really intending to pay it back, that stops now. True to his word, he had recently repaid several old loans I had given up on seeing again. It was as much about the recognition of the imbalance as it was about the money itself. For my parents' 36th anniversary, we planned a genuinely family-centered celebration. Everyone contributed what they could. James and Natalie handled the food, I brought drinks and decorations, and my parents provided the venue, their now established backyard. There were no business associates invited, no country club members to impress. Just family valuing each other's company. As we ate dinner under the pergola, my mother raised her glass. To family, she said simply, the real thing, not just for show. It was a small acknowledgement, but a meaningful one. The journey to this point had been painful but necessary. In the year since the backyard incident, I had done a lot of personal growth work as well. I had examined my own patterns of seeking validation through giving, of putting others' needs before my own. I had learned to set boundaries not just with my parents, but in all my relationships. At work, I no longer volunteered for every difficult project to prove my worth. With friends, I started expressing my own needs instead of always being the supportive listener. And in dating, I became more discerning about partners who took more than they gave. The greatest lesson from the backyard betrayal was learning to value myself enough to expect reciprocity in relationships. Love should not be transactional, but it should be mutual. Giving is beautiful, but not when it comes at the expense of your own well-being or when it is taken for granted. As the evening wound down and family members began to leave, my father pulled me aside. I want you to know something, he said quietly. That backyard project last year, it was a turning point for me, for us. As painful as it was, I think it needed to happen. I nodded, understanding what he meant. Sometimes relationships need to break before they can be rebuilt properly. You stood up for yourself, he continued. I was angry at the time, but I was also proud. You demanded the respect you deserved. Coming from my father, this was an extraordinary statement. The man who had once texted, "Do not be dramatic," was now acknowledging the validity of my feelings and actions. Later that night, as I drove home, I reflected on how far we had all come. The relationship with my parents would never be perfect. There would still be moments of frustration, old patterns that threatened to reassert themselves, but there was a new foundation of honesty and mutual respect that had not existed before. The backyard that had caused so much pain had ironically become a place of healing, not in the way any of us had initially envisioned, but perhaps in the way we actually needed. So what about you? Have you ever had to take a painful stand against family members who took your generosity for granted? Or have you found yourself on the other side, realizing too late that you had been taking someone's love and support for granted? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is not being dramatic, it is being brave. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to set clear boundaries.